So you are looking at free will in its full manifestation.
In its full movement.
In its full movement.
We looked at will.
Yeah.
We saw will. Now we're trying to establish if will is at all free.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is what we call will. Juggling of information.
Yes.
Now, is it free?
Okay. Do you think if you've decided contrary, there would have been some other, there would have been...
If you ask him that, you'll say even when you decide contrary,
It's
because
still
of the information.
Yeah, see what happened here? You just pointed at your glass, isn't it? I know that information. This is a glass, I need to get water. There's no me getting up from this chair without that specific movement. That's what I mean.
Boss
There's
is
no
saying without information there's no will.
And which means, but the information is catered to you. Do you see the part? The part where I come in is that I bring in the way the information caters directly to you. It functions best in will.
Based
Yeah,
on
but
what?
it's free.
Eh?
Based on what?
Whatever information you were making a decision. So basically, okay, no, I think this is the best one. This is, the YOLO is fine.
Put it on top of the glass then.
My blanket.
That's fine.
No, you're fine. No, don't worry, I'll take it off. I think we have plenty of examples. This is a very good one.
How does this one fall into information?
Well, would he have lifted up that thing without that movement? So does he have freedom in that at all? Hi everyone, welcome back to Mirror Mind. This is a discussion long overdue. Last time I was with Gifts, we had, I think we had agreed that we would meet and discuss free will.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried discussing it a little. No, I don't even think we tackled it.
Nah.
Just agree that next time we do it.
Yeah.
But when we met last time, we were with that other brother of ours. He actually needs to come back
Okay.
to finish the discussion. Remember, we were talking about aliens and
Yeah.
yeah. But I think today it would be good to explore free will. And but my brother here was back again. Thank you very much for coming back, my brother. Let's see how we can approach this. And I feel there's another underlying subject that we will probably approach, but that one will come naturally as we're discussing free will. So, last time I spoke with Apostle David, I asked him about free will. If I recall properly what he told me free will is. He said something about angels had free will and so on. So, but what is freedom of will in terms of Christianity? What do you understand by free will? I think it can be, if you give us a good idea.
General background, yeah.
We can maybe discuss this.
Okay. First off, shout outs, subscribe to the channel. It's the permissible. It's that God allows man from his nature to dictate decision making. Yeah. So he doesn't interfere in that. He allows you, basically. That's the way you can easily define free will. Is that it's the permissible will. Is that God is not going to interfere. Like right now, if I just woke up and I decided I'm gonna shoot really, God is not gonna stop me. Now, the only thing that can happen, that can hinder that from happening, would be that that's not really his time to go. And so, in view of God's permissible will or free will, there is also God's will at the back.
Okay.
It kind of actually, if you think of free will by itself preaches God. Because how are all 6 billion of us making individual decisions And it always lands us at a predestined position.
And the ultimate will of God.
Yeah.
So then, where is the freedom in that if it ultimately leads us to God's will?
You can decide otherwise. Like you can decide now to slap me or not slap me. Do you feel something taking you to sleep?
Yes.
But then if it decides that still does whatever decision that he makes still fall in the will of God? Can I make a decision and that decision completely deviates from the will of God?
Yes. Because remember, he is all knowing.
Yeah.
In the sense that God knew you're going to do this.
Okay.
So he is not bound by time. Is that whatever you decided, God would have known it.
So you would have made what room or allowance or preparation for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it then filters into whatever follows into that
You understand?
in life in
Yeah.
general.
But what do you think of free will?
I think once you introduce the concept of the will of God in free will, it gets a bit tricky.
No, let's
Yeah.
take God out of the equation first.
Yeah, because why I'm saying that if I decide to do something and that thing is entirely my will, and yet still going back to God, and yet there is the will of God in the background or on the forefront or whatever. But regardless of whatever decision I make, there is always the will of God that still prevails. That always leaves the question is, did I really have the free will in the first place if it is still bound or it's within the confines of God's will? Yeah. Maybe for me that's where the question is.
That's why I say, okay, you take this and then fit it into your definition.
Okay.
For instance, just say,
Making the noise. Put something.
you're gonna have too much work.
No, just put something.
It's just one door.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my free will.
Wait.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah. You able to pause this, right?
No,
Oh.
that doesn't pass. Welcome to a commercial. Advertising water.
Vat.
Water. Brought to you by the Department of Sanitation.
Hey,
them, no?
water and sanitation.
Yeah, water and sanitation.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
So if you fit in the fact that God is all knowing, so he knew you were going to do that. Whatever you are not going to trick him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, so it's not to say that you are controlling. No, you are not controlling. You decided. But at the end of the day, whatever you decide, it's going to literally follow in line
With the will of God.
Yeah. It's
So
going to end
you're
us.
saying God has made allowance for my free will in his will. Because when I think of free will, I think of an action that I decide how it starts, right? And then I decide even the outcome or the end.
But you can't.
In terms of free will, that I've
Okay.
decided, okay, like what you said, if I wake up and I decide that I'm going to shoot you, it means obviously there is the beginning of it where I shoot you. If I intend to kill you, then I kill you,
Okay.
right? So then my will has taken place there. I've done what I intended to do. That's what I understand to be with free will. You see? But then if I then decide to do a thing like that, and then there is the will of God also, in that context, where does it fall?
Is there freedom then in that will of his? Perhaps can we try to chop that? I mean, these are two words. So there's free will. Okay, let's start with will. What is it to will something? Is to, I guess, desire something, to take action upon your desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah, to
will
act
would
to
be?
act
Yes.
To
upon
act upon your
your
desire.
desire or your needs or what you
Your
will,
want.
what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to find out if there's freedom in that action, in that equation of acting upon your desire. So before we get to that freedom, how do you desire anything? What triggers any desire before you even take steps to act upon that desire?
I think that's a very complicated question because in essence it's asking the very source of what you desire as a human being, where it comes from or what you will, or if in any way it could be something that could be wholly attributed to you.
Yeah. Like, do you have any choice in desiring anything at all?
And what I then call free will, will it be something that emanates from me as the source, you know? So I think in that regard, it's really a complicated question. I'm not sure what you see
But
there.
you see why I say for me, it humbles the person
Yeah.
to follow God, because okay, I'm a Christian. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say God.
Mhm.
It humbles you that no matter what you're deciding, God knew it, and it's not gonna deviate away from exactly what thing. Like, you can't change prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that already tells you, if the fact that there is prophecy, you are gonna decide what you're gonna decide, but it's still worked out in His will.
Because I think what Boss is also asking, so take away the fact that you're a Christian,
Okay.
right? Let's deal with free will on a individual, personal level.
Okay.
When you then decide to say, okay, at this moment I'm exercising free will, what does that take the form of? What exactly is it? Are you, even if you say, like we have defined that you are acting upon your will or your need or whatever it is, or want, what form does that take and what is the source of that?
How do you will anything? How do you want anything? Like earlier on, when you got here and you wanted some water, how was that process?
So obviously for that one, I would say it's a natural process. You know, it's a
Is
physical.
there any freedom in that process?
On that one, I doubt there is.
No, there is
No.
On a
It's
physical,
depletion.
yeah,
It's-
on
the
a
body is depleted,
yeah,
so it makes the
on a physical level, I don't think there is any free will to be exercised.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
So there's no freedom of will physically. So what makes us think that there's freedom of will psychologically or spiritually
Or on a conscious
or
level.
conscious level? Could there not be some illusion in that? Could the only freedom actually be the God's will?
Are you suggesting that in the same sense that we don't have freedom in the physical, we might be under the illusion that there is in the spiritual or psychological?
freedom.
I think that's something worth exploring. I've never really,
Yeah, I think that's really
Yeah.
what I wanted to.
because okay, let's try and make it more. Use examples. Let's say I desire to worship God. Where does that desire emanate from? Is it something that comes out of my own free will? Or is it also like what we said on the physical level, where you feel like you should have water, or you know? And I think this is where you can also come in, because what a person would say that human beings were meant to worship, meant to worship God. And if that's the case, if we are designed in our nature is to worship God, is there an element of free will there?
Yeah, in the sense that it always fits into his. That's why I say, for me, there is something about it that is very humbling to think I'm deciding.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, like, think about Judas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God literally had it that there was someone. Judas had decided, I want to betray this guy.
Yeah.
And it happened to be that the Messiah has to die exactly at that time.
Okay.
You know, it's not like Judas was there sitting and counting. Yeah, you know, I'll wait for the Passover, and then, no, in his wicked desire, he had decided, I'm gonna betray the Messiah. That's it. I'm done with this guy.
And that
then
fell through together with the will of God. I think for me that's where I find it. I don't know.
If you look at it that way, you are removing the freedom then from man's will. There's no freedom.
But you think about your
See,
decision.
on my side, from my level, I have the impression that that's why I say using
Yeah,
that
it
word
gives
very
you.
well.
Yeah, maybe it gives you the
It's very
impression.
humbling if you look at it from that point of view.
But if you look at the Messiah example, or if you look at the Judas example,
Yeah.
but your decision as well, boss, it's no different to the Judas decision.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same.
That's what we're exploring. So, from my perspective, I have the impression that I am actively doing something that leads to something else. Like I have freedom into acting this way or that way, and it relates to this way or that way. But if you give yourself enough time and observation, you find out that actually
You're
this
falling
was
into.
God's will.
Yeah, you're falling into a certain.
It's never
path.
been His will. It's never been Duma's will or Gift's will.
But you don't feel compelled to make, you know, like
So does it
it
become an
taking-
illusion then? If
an illusion of decision.
yeah.
If
No.
you find out that your will
How-
was meant to.
Sorry. How are you then owning up that it's yours? Like what it's saying, right? To say, if you then find out that this decision, fine, I made it on my own,
Yeah.
but it is falling through on another will that's already in existence, and that is the will of God.
The question is, do you feel compelled to make any other decision except the one you did?
No.
There you
No,
go.
you don't feel compelled.
So which means you're not being controlled to make the decision. And he's not, because otherwise, okay, think about it. How does he then make a judgment over you? Like the idea that he makes a judgment over you as a human being
Mhm.
implies that you had total freedom to do what you wanted.
I
Then
think,
free will is a tricky subject.
I think, you know,
No,
I think
honestly.
let's not introduce God yet.
Yeah.
Let's keep it to a limited level
Of human
looking at
understanding.
it.
Yeah.
And then perhaps it can open up really the true will of God. Because if you think about it, if you have no choice physically, when you touch fire to jump, when you feel thirsty to drink, there's no freedom of will physically. Now, what is your freedom of will psychologically? How do you desire anything at all psychologically? Because remember, any movement, any physical movement is triggered by a psychological movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's that feedback game. You feel thirsty, you
Yeah.
recognize the thirst, and then you take up action because you know how it is to deal with the thirst.
Mm-hmm.
That is a psychological movement, right? That was triggered by a physical movement that has no freedom in it.
Mm-hmm.
So where is the freedom in psychological movement?
But let me. Okay. How? What do you say then about people that starve themselves to death?
Because they're pursuing something. Why would someone starve himself to death?
No, in
Let's assume
the
they're still rational.
yeah, I'm saying in the question of free will, doesn't that also depict that you can exercise free will even on a physical level?
Yeah.
You know, you can decide not to drink water and you die of thirst.
Yeah. Because why are you deciding that? What are you trying to achieve?
It could be any reason, but doesn't it show you that I am able to
Although the
exercise.
will, although there is a natural will
To
in the
drink,
body
yeah.
to drink,
Mm.
you exercise contrary to it.
Yeah, okay, let's take an example of someone who decides to starve themselves or not drink water enough to the point where they die.
Mhm.
Let's assume that person is fasting. Because a lot of people die fasting.
Mhm.
By the way, I don't know if it's a phenomenon.
Which is stupid,
here.
actually.
It's
Yeah.
very stupid. So, how did that work out? So, I hear people telling me about how to reach God. Right?
Mhm.
That's a physical movement, right? So there's a physical movement that I keep in myself as a psychological movement, which is knowledge, right? My knowledge of how it is to achieve apparently God.
Mhm.
That knowledge is so powerful that it gives me enough drive to fight the next movement of physical movement, which is thirst.
Mhm.
Had I not had that motive of reaching God, which was triggered, that motive is only in me because there was a physical movement, isn't it? I heard
Mhm.
that you must reach God through fasting.
Mhm.
Had I not had that drive, would I have starved myself to death?
No.
So it's still the same equation then. The freedom, I had never had the freedom because something else that happened to me triggered that
For you to act
process,
in-
for me to act in that way, to
Yeah.
even fight against my own natural obligations.
Mhm. Well, I think it, like I said, I think it gets, when you put it that way, the question that it brings about, at least for me, is the question of saying what motivates our free will, or what motivates us
What
to
motivates will first?
Yes, that's what I'm
If we
saying.
can
Yeah.
see that,
What
then we can see
yeah.
if it's free
Or not, yeah.
If motivation is ever
Yes.
free.
So that's the question that it brings up, that at the first instance where you then say, I am going to act upon this,
Mm.
and in your acting upon this, you are exercising will.
Will.
If we try and maybe explore on exactly what it is that makes us act,
Yeah.
and in acting then come to a point where we say, I am acting on my own will, or that, I think there it will answer then the question of saying, is there free will
Mm.
or not? Yeah.
Okay, so how do I act? How does a man act? To act, it implies some sort of decision, right?
Mhm.
Some sort of recognition of a certain state of things.
Mhm.
Say it's raining right now, and I decide to shut the door.
Mhm.
So I need to recognize, I need to store a certain kind of information.
Mhm.
The information triggers an appropriate response.
Mhm.
Without information, I can't act.
Mhm.
What would I be acting for or against if I didn't have any sort of information?
Okay, so when you then put it that way, we can agree that when we act,
Which means
it's
we
an
are
act out
always
of information
yeah,
so the
that's
underlying-
not actually, it seems like it's a reaction.
to the information that you already.
Yeah, will seems to be a reactionary movement then. So store information, then act upon information.
Okay.
So storing, act upon storing, which gather again another sort of. So it's a cause and effect
Yeah,
movement.
yeah.
So I guess will is a reaction. It's how can I call it? It's a cause and effect movement.
Hmm. So how you then decide to act upon that information is what we call free will. Would you
it's
say
what
that?
that's what we call in free will. But is it free? So that's my question now. Is
Okay.
it free?
Well, it gets tricky because one, obviously, it will have to depend on the information that you have,
Yeah.
where you got it from.
Mhm.
If it's information that originates from sources outside of you, and then you act based on that information.
Because there's a very interesting video you sent to me last time. Those kids that
were meant to touch.
Snakes,
Yes.
So apparently they fear how they learn how to be afraid of other things. Because normally they're afraid of either heights or noise, right? But apparently any other fear is acquired, isn't it?
Yes.
So they look at the reaction.
That's funny. Are you telling me we saw the same video without even sharing?
You also saw it, the one of snakes.
Yeah, with the tampering with the this morning.
Really?
But in terms of free will, how do you then understand that? Okay, someone would say, my fear of snakes. Would you say that's out of free will, or that's just, you can't say it's natural?
It's land, so there
It's
is
land.
free will there. Because the guy literally says they don't know to be afraid. They literally look at their keeper to see their reaction.
How they
And
react.
if their keeper is okay, they feel sorry.
But now, isn't that all of life? All of life, how we go through it and while we go through it, we then think we are exercising free will. Because I'm saying before they actually acquire, the kids, they actually acquire that fear. Their actions towards the snake is one of, they're not scared of snakes. They just touch them and just, until, like you said, they look at their, and then they realize that this is something to be what? To be feared. So how many of those things in life do we encounter where we first have to, look at another source before you know how to respond, and then in you responding, you then say it's a free.
You don't need that much. But an example for that, it's lightning. You've never been struck by lightning. You've never even seen someone.
But I
be
have
struck.
information that says that thing will kill you.
Exactly. So you don't need it to happen for you to actually even react to things. So your reaction is just based off of information without any a particular event that
You see,
happens.
that's what we're trying.
That's what we're trying to find out. That okay, then free will is something that emanates from information.
Will, not free. Will first.
Will,
emanates from.
will is something that emanates from information. Without information, you can't will anything because you don't know anything.
Yes.
Okay, so if we say that, then what you then call will be determined by the information that you have.
Yes.
Okay. At birth, we have no information. We then get given that information, and then we own it and we call it. You can call it ours, or you can call it your own, or whatever the case may be. If then I'm willing from that information, right? Is it my will, or it's giving me the impression that it is my will, but it's only a reaction to the information that I already have?
But if you are reacting on the information you have, now that now has put you out of
The information.
the other people's information or whatever reaction to that particular thing. So if you are now reacting to your information, you don't need others to tell you. Like if you hear a gun, you don't even need other people's information to tell you somebody's shooting.
Okay.
You're now basing your decision at that point on what you yourself have gathered by yourself. So that's how you would determine that, no, this is me deciding.
Okay. No, I think I understand where he's coming from. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. But from what you are saying is, we will all have the same information.
Yeah.
But the interpretation of the information and how we act upon it, that's where the issue of will comes in.
Yeah.
Because someone else might be told that, look, this is a snake, and it's a dangerous snake, and they will still decide
They move
to
behind
touch the
it.
snake.
Yeah.
It's not that because we our framework is the same, our information is the same, therefore the will becomes the same. So that difference in will is where the issue of free will comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see the difference in will. I think you already lay a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So we're saying reaction, to react, right? Is there any freedom in reaction? Isn't there, for there to be a reaction, there needs to be a trigger?
Yeah.
Because you are reacting to something. Right?
Yes.
You have no choice but to react to something. You can either react A or B, or C, or whatever you want to call it. So you're saying the different interpretation of the different output, the different action, the different reactions is what you call in free will.
Yes.
But that's an after effect. I'm saying what makes you react is always something before. And since it's connected to something before, there's no freedom. Because at the end of the day, to be free is not to be linked or bound by anything, right? Isn't that the definition of
But
freedom?
remember that with the way he put it,
Yeah.
that actually determines what you make of the trigger. So remember, he said we all have the same information. So everybody's been
It's
told.
funny actually, you know, when you talk, because that's how we started our conversation last time.
Yeah.
Somehow we're going back. So I guess
Yeah.
we're always talking about something approaching differently. But please go ahead.
The way he put it
Yeah.
is the same information. We all know it's a snake. We've been told they bite.
Yeah.
Others, when they look at the snake, the first thing they look at is what type of a snake. They know, okay, it's not a raptor, it's not one of those, what, and then they determine the approach, knowing very well the dangers around it. But for the rest of us, hey, take a stone, hit the snake on the head.
Why?
The reaction.
It's the reaction.
Yeah, but why do you react that way?
And now we're determining that the information is the same. So if the information
the
is
information is not the same, because for you, maybe you are an Indian. You know these people that play with flute. That's how you call it in English. You, since a young age, the kind of information they're gathering is you can be cool with snakes. You can actually play with them and all that. So that will determine how you react to snakes in the future.
no, but
As black people, snake is the worst thing ever. So you jump.
but that's reaction.
That's
It's a reaction.
yeah.
But what
The trigger.
action have you ever made in your life?
Or let me also put it this way. I can bring a snake here
Yeah.
and say this is a non-venomous snake.
Yeah.
Even if it bites you, let's say even if it bites you, it won't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even with that information, you
Still
can
a-
decide and say, I'm not touching
Yeah.
this snake. But you have information. It can even come from someone who's an expert in that field, and you will still decide to stay. Me and snakes.
But that's
We just-
fairly.
So I'm
fairly
saying-
easy to understand.
Yeah,
You know why?
and then there's a second person also who then same information will say, oh, this is what you're saying. Okay, and then they pet the snake.
I think
but
that
remember
depends
now-
on the strength of the previous information. So you have people that have maybe serious trauma when it comes to something, right? So no matter what happens, nothing can ever change them from behaving a certain way. So let's say maybe when you were a kid, you were bitten by a dog.
Yeah.
Even if you know that these dogs, they don't attack, these are very well groomed dogs. But that previous experience is so rough on you that you can't actually do any other way. You have to run away. So that's what I'm saying. Isn't that actually dictating your move? Although you might want to do it differently, but you actually end up behaving a certain way because you know what has happened before.
So are you then saying that what eventually decides what we will is the information that we have accumulated and how much of it holds us or grounds us?
Yeah, first, you can't act without any information. And how can you act without? How can you react without any information?
You can't react out of ignorance. You can.
How? You can react.
Out of ignorance.
What sort of ignorance?
Without information. You just
Yeah.
out of instinct.
Do what, for instance?
Let's say if a lion was to approach here, none of us would know what we'll do.
Yeah, you don't know, but that's.
But lion, I feel like lion is too far.
Yeah.
Use something simple, like a kettle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a kettle is boiling there. You go and you touch. You don't see that there's an exposed wire.
Yeah.
You acted out of ignorance.
Yeah, but why
And
do
then-
you go touch the wire?
Uncle, you're trying to solve the boiling situation.
Mm.
Over
Which is information.
the boiling is the reason of your going there.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling information.
Yeah.
You
But then you are-
relating to a-
But you are ignorant
They're
of
not
the
aware of
other
that.
aspect, the choking part.
I think let's understand each other with information again. Me looking at this is information. Me acknowledging that there's a mic, that is information.
Mhm.
Me acknowledging that there's a cutter, that's information. That's why I'm gonna go towards the cutter.
But you are ignorant because you don't know of your safeties. You're only thinking of the information
That
you've
you already know.
considered.
Yeah.
So you are ignorant of the fact that there might be a cable at the back that's not properly plugged.
Yeah, no, I'm saying ignore the other reactions. Stay with the first reaction, going toward the cutter.
Mhm.
Because we're trying to see the freedom in will. So let's not come up with different will, which is grabbing the cutter and then
Yeah.
being shocked and running to the hospital. Let's stick with one example,
Mhm.
going toward the cutter.
Mhm.
What makes you go there if it isn't for the information of the cutter?
You're okay. Do you know why interpreting A and B it should be done at that point?
Mhm.
Is that when they imply safety protocols around these devices, it doesn't imply where are you going to find it or how you're going to find it.
That information is not there at that moment.
Yeah, at that moment when you're approaching it, it's boiling. Yes, you have information, but the information doesn't imply situation number 2. Situation number 1 you are trying to solve, yes, you are informed. But the other part, the safety protocol, you are not.
Yeah, you went a bit. How did the people that, I think let's narrow it down. You know, the people that came up with safety protocols, they had to go through,
Rigorous testing.
yeah, they had to go through 1, A, B, so we are just taking advantage of all that which they've done.
Mhm.
So, but we're trying to go to the very source of action or reaction. Not, because now we've structured life in a way that all this information are kind of given to us and we kind of navigate with all that information. But I'm saying the people that came up with the information, in fact, it said the first reaction of man. How was it at all? If it isn't true, gather information and then acting upon information.
So, but that how my go-to here
Mhm.
is to understand how does this part contribute towards the will part.
Towards
The will. The will part, yeah.
Because first you need to understand why is it that you want or desire anything. Because to will is to want, isn't it? To desire. What makes you desire? If it isn't information.
Can't we say human beings have a natural desire for knowledge? I
Yeah.
think it's something that's just we come into this world with the capacity
To acquire knowledge.
to acquire knowledge.
Yeah. It's
Right?
not even natural desire,
Yeah.
it's inevitable outcome of
Yes.
humanity. Yeah.
So I think because of that already it's something that we cannot really, we have no control of.
You don't will to acquire.
Yes, we don't will to acquire. Like you always make an example of a child that, you know, the child sees a hand. At that moment, they are acquiring the knowledge and the, you know, and the information and stuff like that. So in terms of acquiring the knowledge that will then use to will, the acquiring part comes natural, you know. And then once the knowledge has been acquired, it in whatever form, you know, that's where then the interpretation of what you have acquired comes in, and it will differ from one person to another.
Which means that is it not that what we're calling free will actually isn't the real free will? I would say the free will, the freedom is in the capacity, the innate starting point of
Acquire.
having enough space to acquire.
But once you have acquired, are you
That
saying
can't
then
be
free will
There's
stops?
no longer freedom.
Maybe you are mistaking two things.
Mm.
Maybe because the acquiring part is not something that you can decide. You are looking at that and thinking, if I cannot decide to take in this information, therefore I probably can't decide what I would do with it once I have that information. Because like you said, we have a natural hunger to acquire knowledge, right?
I'd rather say an inevitable hunger or an inevitable property to acquire.
Mm-hmm.
It's inevitable. You can't not acquire unless maybe if you seek
Yeah.
or. But even there, you probably acquire it differently.
Okay, so let's suppose that you have acquired, right? Since we have established that the acquiring part is inevitable. Let's suppose that you have acquired this knowledge, right? Where do you see the difficulty in will once this knowledge is acquired?
So you see, the very second you acquire, the acquired knowledge is a reactionary movement. It's a triggered movement of A, then B, then C, then D. Then
What would be your A there in terms of acquiring?
So that would be, let's take the example of those kids, playing with the snake.
Mm-hmm.
The very second they learn the fear of the snake,
Mm-hmm.
they are doomed, almost doomed forever to always run away from the snake.
But then, like what he said, do you realize that that is not always the case?
Yeah, so if that is not the case, what will happen is they will always fight against the first ever acquired knowledge.
And
which
then
is-
they find
yeah,
knowledge
a
that
fight means you are fighting something that was there previously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see, there's that reaction. You are going against something that was there before.
Mm-hmm.
So you might, I guess you might call that freedom, but is it really free?
If we do not call it freedom, what then would be the reason for not calling it freedom? If then, at the first instance, there was fear, but then that fear is lightning, and then that fear, as time went on, for some reason, I managed to interpret it as something else. Isn't there freedom in that?
Because for me, the way I call, I guess now we can talk freedom. What I call freedom is something not linked to anything else.
Any knowledge whatsoever.
Any knowledge, any movement, something that is on its own. As long as it's linked to something else, there's a linkage,
It's more like
you're not free.
a bondage.
Yeah, either you're trying to break or you're trying to make sure the link stay there. But
What do you
it's
think
linked.
of that?
Yeah, I think the part that I'm still hung up on is that the acquiring phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like once you've determined that the information is the same, once you are done with laying out that foundation to say the information that they are all interpreting is the same,
Mm-hmm.
snake, not the extra curriculum stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's snake. You have a base to interpret either the trigger points or the decision, and then that spells free will either ways, because and it will tell you how to interpret free will, because it helps you see their individuality in the information.
Mm-hmm.
Because the same information, when it comes to you, it's going to build in you something. It might build, I was watching National Geographic like last week. There was this guy, he was sleeping down next to the snake. I'm like, dude, stand like 2 steps away, It's the same information. He's built this lab to hunt the snakes, look for them in the dark. He's looking for the snakes at night, I'm like, dude, you can do it in the afternoon. We won't think you are... we won't think you're a coward, But it's like, no, at night they are cold, so they stay in one place and whatnot. So But once you've determined that the information is the same, but then you are able to identify that the will comes from how their character develops in that's individual.
The character of the individual, right, develops
around that information. That creates a different, like for instance, there's some people, if you put a gun here, they're dead scared. They don't know what to do with you. Why does he want a gun here, you know? But then for some people, you have a gun here, they feel safe. For some people, there's crime going on. It's the same it's the same information.
Is it the same?
Yeah.
But now,
it's a gun.
Sorry to stop you, because I'm trying to have a meeting point to what he then says. And you can again correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand you to be saying is that even then when you are looking for that which will inform you at that moment to say this is then how I'll react and this is what I would do, you are saying it is still informed by a previous information. And for as long as it is informed by that previous information, because without it you can't act, it's not free will.
But look at it. And now, we all know how to act to animals. So the first question, even if you don't know what animal it is, it's an animal. So have you seen people like when they hear brrr, they want to see it's not a bee, it's a what? It's one of those wasps. They'll fly.
But what makes them act that way? Is it not the information?
Is that you see the buzzing at the back of their thing?
Yeah.
It creates that. Let me gather more.
Yeah, go slowly there. Yeah. Look at that buzzing.
Yeah.
So it's sensation, acquired knowledge of that, which could be happening, right? So you gather first that information of is this thing that happening?
Okay.
Like I don't know what it is. Like the interpretation comes off of, but you capture that sensation. That's what I'm calling knowledge. That's what I'm calling information, basically, and that's very low level. So I'm saying if that is what makes you move, even physically, isn't that what also makes you move psychologically?
Yeah,
so
but that's
why you might even go look for doom or something.
But it's individual.
Yeah, but the same. How you react, I might react a little bit differently. Maybe I'm cooler, right? But it's the same process, which is, recognize the recognition of what is happening first, and then the determination of what is it that I'm just gonna be cool. I'm used to this. It's not a big deal. Maybe I grew up in a forest. I'm used to this thing. So the information is dictating. That's what I'm calling linkage, and that's how our will work, our desire, whether it's sexual desire, financial desire. It seems like it's linked to knowledge, recognition of something.
Yeah.
So I don't see any freedom. That's what some people might call it freedom, but I don't see any freedom in that.
But it's learned information. You see, this is where I see freedom, because I see learned information, and any type of learned information interprets differently to each individual. The same information, but when it comes to you, it creates a certain type of character out of you. Like the reason why I play airsoft is because they say it creates see that first shock,
that
adrenaline, yeah. So it gets you used to that adrenaline shock, because the adrenaline shock is why people, even if they have a firearm, when those thuds come up, they just don't act. So people with guns are some of the worst victims, because they just don't know how to act at the time, which is why when you buy the thing, they tell you, please practice, go to the thing,
get a license,
yeah.
So then,
isn't that
so it's free will.
You see what it's saying. You are describing how someone would act in a certain situation, right? Based on the information that they would have already acquired.
Yeah.
I think let's try and clear this out. So he's saying because of that, if every time you are going to act, right, it's going to be in reference of information that you've already gathered. How then does it become free?
How does it's Because remember,
because you will never
It's a
act.
reaction.
You will never act outside of information. You will always, even if that information is instant. Like right now, if I was to take a pin and you would, but it's because there's information at that second is coming
Yeah.
in, and you'll act on it.
In fact, if you have nervous disease, you
Yeah.
might not react because the information.
There's no
never
information
reached
that's
the-
coming in.
Yeah. So I'm saying, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying that can't possibly be freedom because it's a reaction. It's not an action. It's a reactionary movement.
Because I see
so
what
what do you make of the information you've acquired?
is the one that would
Do
decide.
you know anything? You remember this was a conversation with first
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Do you really know anything? If you have innately in you built that acquire information,
Mhm.
which means the information is very much catered to you. Which is why when they want someone, like for instance, if you bleed a lot, you got stabbed or something like that, and then you lost blood, the first thing they have to look for is blood that literally looks like yours.
Mhm.
It's the first thing that they do.
Mhm.
And some people even die while they're still looking
Yeah,
for your blood.
For blood match, yeah.
That tells you how rare the information coded in you, or whichever way, is so unique. That's why I'm saying we have to realize, okay, at least for my viewpoint,
Mhm.
we have to realize that no matter what we come up with, there is an individuality to the information that I now carry. I can't blame my parents and say, okay, my parents did this. No, because to the information, which is why, like, the bitterness that, let's say maybe, God forbid, you grew up abused, your parents used to beat you up and whatnot. So you have trust issues.
Mhm.
You have issues with your,
You have that kind of information.
yeah, you have that.
And you're acting on it.
You're acting on it now.
And you're calling it will.
Yeah,
So
it's trying to win.
this is like a 360. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think the difficult part then is to try and really have a clear cut separation
Defined.
there and say this is will. Because even in you saying what you're saying, let's say I had childhood traumas, right? And then I'm now an adult and they are playing out in my life. What really is happening there is I'm reacting to
What
previous
happened?
information. If
Yes,
something
I'm very
different,
sure.
if something differently had happened to me,
You would react.
Right.
yeah. So
Yet you feel
it-
confident that it might do it.
yes. So in that, where is the space of free will? If it always seems like the way I'm responding to things will always be determined by information that I've gathered. But not only that, even if it's knowledge that I do not readily have, or if it's information that I do not readily have, where, like I said, I take a pin and at that moment, what will determine how you respond is you taking in that information and saying, this is what? This is pain, and then you decide to move your hand. So even at that moment, your will is based on the information. And of course, if then there's something wrong maybe with your nerves, I could push that thing all the way in,
But it's
and
still
you would
you.
just be looking at me.
But it's still you. Do you recognize
So-
that part?
You there is what?
You is. These are unlearned. You can learn these behaviors and unlearn them.
But I'll still be
Yeah.
acting
You
on
still
the
be acting.
How do you
information.
unlearn anything? Which means what? You are fighting something that is.
Yeah, you realize, like, that's what we call healing, right?
Yeah.
Healing is reversing the traumas that your subconscious now carries.
So can you do that without inform? Can you heal
Without
without?
replacing. All
You will replace the information. You
Yeah.
replace.
So the whole thing
The
is
thing
always
that's-
information.
Yeah. But do you see, that's why I say it's very much personal. Information and your will, decisions, your decisions out of your
I think I get what he's saying.
will. Yeah.
What is saying?
So you are information that has made you
Boss.
Yeah.
boss,
Yeah.
and boss is this childhood and traumatic experience. right?
Even heaven is agreeing
Yeah.
with us.
And then information comes that's able to what? Heal you and reverse that.
No, you know, it's healing or the process, you know, the initial process that made me a traumatized young child who grew up to be this and that, is the same process that keeps on going.
Yeah.
You're exposed to different information.
Mm-hmm.
Had you stayed in that same very environment, you'll be stuck in that
Yes.
prison of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow life happens that you are acquiring new information, which is maybe healthy and so on.
Mm-hmm.
The process never stopped. The process had always been there, acquiring all that information and
Mhm.
somehow shaping you. It's
Yeah.
kind of like the more you go into darkness, the more you will become and so on and so forth.
That part I understand,
Yeah.
and again, because I'm trying to explain this in
The
the way
idea.
in which I think you have understood it.
Mm.
So you then stumble upon information that says we can deal with this, right? You can then make a decision to say, okay, let's deal with it, or okay, I think this is too much for me to even try and reverse it.
Yes,
I think at that point,
No, stay there before. that.
yeah.
So you say you acquire new information, which is we can deal with it.
Hmm.
Now you're saying you can decide to deal with it or not to deal with it,
Hmm.
right? What's making you decide that?
What informs me to say,
oh, this is where I can do
Will.
it, or
I'll say will there.
which is that information of this can be dealt with.
I'll say will because I can take it or I can discard it.
Yeah, no, stay.
Because
there,
remember,
but
the
what's making
pain,
you?
the pain keeps you.
No, stay. That example
Yeah.
is a good one,
Mhm.
right? So you've had a very terrible childhood.
Mm.
And then finally someone comes and says, you know what?
The solution.
There's another way of living. Then you say, oh no, this is too much. Or you can say, well, let's go ahead, let me try. That information, that individual is a new information,
Mhm.
which you calling healing, which you calling, oh yeah, now I'm deciding to do it or not.
Mhm.
But the trigger, without this, there's not this.
Without the new
The
information,
new
there's
information, there's no
reaction.
juggling, there's no reaction.
Yeah, but the very movement of juggling is the will there.
Yeah, but you see, for you to even say yes or no, you can't say yes or no without having the information of yes or no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That particular action or
That's
whatever
what you
you want,
call it.
that's what you call will.
So now I'm saying that's the illusion. I'm saying that is the illusion.
But the fact that there is the option
There is the
shows
option.
you.
No, there's never been
Which?
options. There's always been knowledge.
And knowledge brings about options.
Wait, the illusion of option.
How is it
But
an illusion?
okay,
Yeah.
you've made decisions. This is how you know that the decision you took. Let me
Which
make a
decision?
very practical decision.
Yeah, go ahead.
They gave you a job, and you're like, this is it.
Uh-huh.
Then another loser comes, says, I can give you a better job. You're like, he's talking nonsense. This one. You knew at that point there wasn't an illusion to you. There was a point where the facts that point to one decision or the other decision made sense. The same way a criminal, when he weighs the decisions of work hard, still
Oh,
to him still makes sense.
Yeah. That's what you're calling.
It's a strong.
will.
There is will in that.
Yeah, no, I'm not denying that there's will. That is will.
yeah.
But it's not
The
free.
decision.
That's what I mean.
Well,
by
I
Isn't
think
it
they,
free
I think
if-
they are left to agree with you. It's for me. This is what I believe. Like in life, there are no certainties. Like there's nothing that's in existence 100%. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you are looking at free will in its full manifestation,
in its full movement.
in its full
We
movement.
looked
No.
at will.
Yeah.
We saw will.
Hmm.
Now we're trying to establish if will is at all free.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is what we call will. Juggling of information.
Yes.
Now, is it free?
Okay. Do you think if you've decided contrary, there would have been some other? There would have been.
If you ask him that, you'd say even when you decide contrary,
It's
it's
still
because
not.
of the information.
Yeah, see what happened here? You just pointed at your glass, isn't it? I know that information. This is a glass. I need to get water.
Mm.
There's no me getting up from this chair without that specific movement. That's what I mean.
Boss
There's
is
no
saying without information there's no will.
And which means, but the information is catered to you. Do you see the part? The part where I come in is that I bring in the way the information caters directly to you. It functions best inwardly.
Based
Yeah,
on
but
what?
it's free.
Eh?
Based on what?
Whatever information you were making a decision. So basically, okay, no, I think this is the best one. The YOLO is fine.
Put it on top of the glass then.
My blanket.
That's fine.
No, you're fine. No, don't worry. I'll take it off. I think we have plenty of examples. This is a very good one.
How does this one fall into information?
Well, would he have lifted up that thing without that movement? So does he have freedom in that at all?
We are weighing expense. At that point, it's which one is more expensive. Let's go to the laptop. We go for the one which is most expensive. It doesn't matter.
Exactly, which means what? That information is detecting even your choice of what to lift up.
But once you say choice, you speak of will there.
Yeah, I'm not denying will.
Yeah.
We've established what
Oh, so will we've established. Now we are dealing with free.
Free.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now there's something
Alright.
else. Okay, for
Okay,
those that are
let's
watching, the video is continuing because we've spilled water. Okay, look at this. Eh?
You're not editing this.
No, I think
Let it run.
it's. I think what we're talking about is life in action.
You see, the fact that in each and every single decision, right?
Yeah.
Guys, this is what I'm saying. In each and every single decision, you are weighing
The option.
which one fits you. That's why, for me, I say every single part of the information you are dealing with,
Yeah.
it's catered to you. So, like you were asking, why? Like Willow was saying, why did I lift this? Because the first thing that came to me is, which one can I purchase?
Which one can I afford?
Which one
Not
can
to
I afford
lose.
to lose,
Yeah.
and which one
Can I afford not to lose?
And
Yeah.
so this becomes the easiest decision
Yeah.
to lift up.
Yeah.
And so on that basis, which means even in the yes or no, there's something that's much more weightier than the other one.
So then will is not the knowledge. It's the option that comes about with the knowledge.
Yeah. Options.
That
are
just the
given by
options.
knowledge.
Yeah.
There's no option without knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the very idea or the very ability to make or choose an option, regardless of whether that option is influenced by A, B, or C that you have acquired, but the very ability to make an option, that is what will or free will is. Whether it
No, it's
is
not
free,
free.
whether it is free
That we'll
100% or
find
not,
out. Yeah.
that we'll find out.
Yeah.
But
'Cause
perhaps
for
you might
tonight-
tell us why you think it is
Yeah.
not free.
Yeah, but so okay, which means what? With knowledge, you record the past,
Mhm.
and then you can project a certain future.
Mhm.
In this case, was the future of losing this expensive device is too painful, too,
Mhm.
it's just too bothersome.
Mhm.
So you can't project a certain future without the past that you acquired.
Correct.
So that's what we call will.
Mhm.
That's what creates desire. That's what creates anger. That's what creates, lust. Anything will.
It's within the confines of
knowledge,
information and
acquired
knowledge.
knowledge.
Yes. So there we agree.
Yeah, that's
But
will.
now also look at it this way, that knowledge on its own or information on its own is not something that's limitless.
No, it's always limited.
Yeah. So because it's limited, that means even that which it can produce will be something limited.
Yeah, and you know,
Yeah.
exactly, good. That's a good word.
Yeah. So even the will that will come from that
Yeah.
will be
That's
limited.
why I'm saying it's not
Yeah.
free, because it's limited.
It's free, but it's not
No.
100%.
You see, the first second you say it's limited,
Yeah,
which means it's confined, right?
yeah.
So it's not free.
Not
But you
to
can
what
never-
extent?
But remember, it's the only reason why your information is limited is because you're dealing with mortal things that in themselves do not carry all essence of information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as you're dealing with things that are, that's why you see, like when you were coming, you kept saying, like, think about it. You're talking about God, like God. Like that guy wasn't probably thinking about what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
You were trying to like
Just think about it.
think about it. Like he can't. To him, it's like it's God.
Mm.
But to him, there is to you
Mm.
infinity.
Mm.
You think infinity when you think God.
Yeah.
And so the very point that the information is limited points to you are dealing with a mortal world, things that fade away, things
Yeah.
that are not meant to give infinite information.
Yeah.
Like you see the information of the cattle that we spoke about earlier on. It's limited in the sense that it can't inform you infinity.
Yeah.
It can only tell you about
Mm.
this.
And it
Yeah.
can only take certain steps to say there are certain things that might happen which we might not see now,
Yeah.
but take these steps to,
Yeah.
so it's like that.
So again, so now we're looking at the freedom, right, of will.
So it is free in that.
No, it's not.
No, think about it.
Yeah.
So if in the sense that if I'm dealing with knowledge, that's it's not necessarily that it is God has limited it. No, it's that I'm dealing with it at a finite point, at a point where
I'm limited.
I'm limited.
Yeah.
And so God only gives me as far as I need. Because if I touch this glass and then I'm thinking about diamonds, and your head will explode.
Mhm. Yeah.
You don't need more than information you interact with. Honestly speaking, I'm not a doctor. I don't need to know, okay, if I cut this part, if the glass that comes out from here, it's going to do.
Yeah.
You don't need that information. You only need information to interact with and the things that you're going to. Like you said earlier on before we were recording, you've never had to think about the information about the locust ever since you dealt with it in secondary. Because at that point, they assume, hey, they're just telling you what's out there.
Mhm.
Okay, there's biology, there's meteorology, there's what, and whatever piques your interest determines what choices
You pursue to
you
the
pursue
fullest,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. So I don't think we should think of it. For me, it's free in the sense that it's me who's interacting with it. I'm not interacting with the information that needs to come to me. We need to deal with Windows and what.
Mhm.
So when Willis sees this, he sees products that are very much similar to him.
Mhm.
To me, drink, leave it there.
Yeah.
You see, so it's catered.
To you.
Yeah,
It's
and
limited to you.
yeah,
Yes.
it's limited to you. It gives you are given as much as you need to interact. Like you said, oh yeah, this is what I like about it. It goes to that point of saying, if you don't get out of the environment you're in,
Yeah.
you're only going to interact with
Yeah, if you
information.
don't get out from your limit, you
Pain,
don't know
trauma.
anything else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the limit is, that's what I'm pointing at. Isn't the limit, anything limiting is not free.
But if you get out,
Yeah, for you to get out, freedom has opened the limits, has broken the limits, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Will, that's what will is.
Mm.
Limits, within these confinements, you can bounce around.
Mhm.
Now, you can increase that limit with new information over and over. So that's how.
and you have the choice.
Well, it's not really choice.
Because if you
Freedom-
get out,
only freedom opens up new information.
but if you get
Mhm.
out,
Mm.
think about it, boss. If you get out, and you do have the choice of getting out, it's not like God is not saying,
How do you get out?
huh?
How do you get out? Because all you are is this.
Okay, for example,
Yeah.
I used to think about this stuff by myself.
Yeah.
By myself. Really didn't know that I interacted so much with subject matters of philosophy and what. It didn't. It only, you've known me for how long? For over 10 years.
Yeah.
but we only started talking about it now, this year. So do you see that? Is that he had to step out and assume, does this dude think about thinking?
Yeah.
And then when he came to have a conversation, like, oh no, I've been out of that bubble. You see that? So he stepped out. But notice, I didn't get him out of it. He decided to step out. So that tells you that the information of pain in the places where he was making decisions told him, hey chief, get out.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Okay.
Let me show you what I see, right? It's like, these, back home we used to have these goats, right? When they tie them up on a tree.
Yeah.
And then that's, they get used to that whole small circle, right? To a point where when you kind of free them,
They
never
still
really
stick to that same place, yeah.
So that's what they know. Until you take them and kind of walk around with them, then they get used to other stuff and so on. So I'm saying, could it be the same psychologically, as long as you confined here? Well, first of all, let's say that it's not free. This is what I mean by it's not free. Anything limited is confined.
Mm-hmm.
You're not looking at the entire picture of the whole thing, right? So you've put limits. Like you said, what God is giving you what you need. You can't be infinite, because then that is the definition of God itself. So anything limited is our prison. We're limited to this knowledge here. You can add an extra knowledge, but to add, freedom is required. Because as long as you're in this limited knowledge, there's no adding. It takes you to break from that, and then you create another prison, because you can't create another limit without limiting yourself. You can't jump from, let's say we have a tiny circle here. You know only this small circle, but let's assume there's this
another
bigger
outer
circle.
one that's rounder, yeah.
You need first to break this and then accept a new one, a new prison. That's what I call a new prison, a new knowledge that limits you. In that sense, anywhere where there's limitation, there's no freedom, because the very second there's that small circle, you are acting in the confinement of the circle.
But how do people know how to get out? It means that second...
It can't come from the circle, it comes outside of the circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
It must come in the circle, because otherwise how do you determine that there is information out to?
So also, maybe to respond to what he's saying, I think the other... I feel like we are looking at the issue of limitation wrong. It is not the knowledge that's limited. It's our knowledge that's limited. It's your knowledge that's limited. But knowledge in itself is not limited. You can know, there's vast knowledge.
Yeah, but what kind of, I have my roommates there. See how many books he's got there.
Do you know why there are so plenty? Because the knowledge is unlimited.
Yeah, no. You can take all human
Yeah.
beings, as crazy as intelligence as they, you put all of them together, they're still limited. In their
No.
knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
The knowledge that they've acquired,
Yeah.
their knowledge is limited.
It's limited, yeah.
But knowledge
itself
is not limited.
I think I would disagree. Let me look
If
at
it was limited, then they'll come to a point where we've had a human being say, I have acquired all knowledge and it has limited me. But people acquire every day. We never stop
till they
acquiring.
die.
Because the source of knowledge is, what's the term? Infinite.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that's why I'm saying maybe we need to come to a point where we realize that when we are talking about the limitless of knowledge, it's ours. We are saying when you have acquired at any given point in time, when you find yourself having acquired knowledge, it will always be
skip.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And the knowledge to skip is inside there. Because otherwise, how do they know to get out here and go to the next one?
Well, I will get there. I think that's when God will come into play.
But you understand the point that I'm trying to...
I want to get to that point first. See, there, I think that's probably the next subject.
The camera.
Yeah. The knowledge, the freedom can't come from within. there's an exterior element, a free element that has to act upon the limitation. Well, maybe we'll look at it later on.
Yeah, but even when you say that the limitation is already within the confines of what you say is limited, I'm saying the limitation, the outside knowledge, whatever it is, that has to come and interfere here so that I can break free, has to touch this first, has to touch this so that I then know that I should move.
Yeah. It has to touch.
And
it's a one way.
To put it in a simple way, it's just new knowledge. I've just acquired new knowledge that gives me the understanding that, look, where you are right now, you are limited. You can actually.
It gives you another limit.
Yeah.
It breaks you from it. You can never get out of that limit without creating another limit.
Is there an end to that limit that you can create for yourself?
That's why it's limited. That's why knowledge, as far as we are concerned, is always limited.
Yeah.
For the very breaking of the
no. It's always limitless, because if it always offers another one, it informs you that this thing doesn't stop.
Yeah, but you see, the very second you've acquired an information of a limitless outside, that's the limited knowledge acting.
Your limited knowledge.
Yeah, my knowledge. Well, first, when you say my limited knowledge, what do you mean?
I'm saying in the...
Like what you know right now.
See,
in any
that's
subject.
actually where the limit comes from. The idea that there's my knowledge.
Yeah.
We're not looking at it from different individual perspective. We're saying for every man there, any knowledge is limited. So which means what we can look at humanity as one movement.
Okay.
So for every man, humanity in itself has no limited knowledge. Even if you had to put all of them together, that would be saying man is limited. And that is the nature of knowledge. Knowledge, you can't, for you to know about something, it means you need to kind of keep a record of that something, right? Which means what you create a limit. Because a record is like, you assume that you've taken a portion.
Yeah, a part
of that.
This part to that part, you record it and then you keep
record
it. Yeah.
So for us, every time men or whatever knows, whether it's a donkey or whatever, wherever knowledge is limited, wherever knowledge is concerned, to say I know, it means it's limited.
True.
We can replace know by literally limit.
Yeah.
Knowing is limit.
So that's where I agree with you. So think of it this way. Think of someone who's taking a picture, right? I take a camera and I take a picture. The picture is limited information.
Yeah, it's a stored moment.
Yes, but where I took it from is a place that is unlimited. There's no limit there.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with human beings. When we take information, we can only gather it in limitations.
Yeah, you see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Taking.
But the information on its own.
No, I don't call that information now. I think that's where maybe the words are getting in the way.
Yeah. You can give it another name where we then...
We'll find another word for it. But that is not information.
Yeah.
Because for information to be there, it means you've captured. Otherwise, there's no information.
Okay, then it becomes words coming in.
Yeah.
So I agree. Let's agree then this way, that whatever we call knowledge or we call information,
it's a capture.
Yes, and it will always be limited.
Yeah, because you've abandoned what's not limited.
But where we have sourced it from,
yeah,
it is not limited.
That's why I'm saying freedom is there, not here.
Then if freedom is there, it means the more we capture, the more we tap into it.
That will never stop, because you will always get...
So that tells you, but that's free. That's the freedom of it.
It's not free. In fact,
you are the one.
So imagine you
are limited.
Imagine then you have heaps of pictures.
Yes.
You have heaps of pictures.
Yeah.
And because I'm trying to then...
Yeah, then you have a video, then you have a full movie, right?
Yes, then you have a full movie.
See, that's the thing, that's the limiting factor of knowledge. You see, people, you can say, well, there's 0 to 100. So you can get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 100.
Yeah.
If you get all the way 0 to 100, then you have freedom, limitless, right? But between 0 and 1 itself, there's 0.0001,
Yeah.
0. So
Yeah.
you can never capture the entirety of it. As long as capture is involved,
Mm-hmm.
it means you are limiting, you are creating a portion.
Yeah, there we agree.
Yeah.
There we agree.
So there's no, that's what I'm saying, freedom is when you are not creating portions. Because for every portion is limits. And when there's
But you
limits,
can't do that.
you
That's
can't.
the thing. You can't, because you see,
you can't
that's
do what?
you can't capture information in its infinite.
Yeah, that I agree.
So we are on the same page on that part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That information as it is, it's meant to be taken personally. It's meant to be enrobed into Boss. It's meant to be enrobed into Ricky. And then you digest it, whether it heals you, it takes you where, and then shape your life around that information. Then that determines what decisions you come
Yeah,
to.
but where boss is finding difficult there is that even in that setup there is no free.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is...
No, you're asking for something else. Remember, you see what Boss is asking for?
Yeah.
We're not going to get to that.
No, we're not trying to...
Because remember, no, let's look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. You see, the technology that man has developed right now tells us where are we and what do we think technology is.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, let's think about data on the phone or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a period where your cell phone literally had 2 gig.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
entire space of your thing.
Yeah.
The picture was like 13 kilobytes.
There was a point where 2 gig was actually stored. It would take up a whole room to store
Yeah.
2 gig,
Yeah.
and then freedom came.
No, there's never been freedom.
There is nice this small.
Yeah,
2
you
gig.
can say 99.9% free.
Yes.
It's not free.
Okay, so then they I agree with you that
Yeah.
the freedom is not in its full
No,
entirety.
don't even call it freedom. If it's not entire, it's
But
not
don't you
free.
think don't you think the person who needed a room to store 2 gig
Yeah.
and now only needs
Like a small.
like a small
Yeah,
has
it's
attained
relative.
some form of freedom?
Yeah,
That's not
relative-
even long back.
Yeah.
That's about 40.
Wouldn't you
50
say
years.
that's
Yeah, it's relative freedom, I guess. You can call
but
it
it
relative.
is freedom. So I'm saying it's not freedom in its fullness.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If something is not full, it means it's limited and then it's not free. That's my argument.
So yeah, it's like you're saying if something is not true, then it just has
It's
to be
not
false.
true. Either
How
it's
do you
true or
determine
it's
to
not
delete
true.
things?
Hmm?
How do you determine to delete things?
Oh, as in digital.
Yeah, like see, if I go into a file, because you see,
Mm.
the thing that makes that man with the 2 gig different is that he didn't need to store more than that.
Mhm.
Back then, the only things to store pictures you were taking physically.
Yeah.
You don't need to store those.
Yeah.
So the idea of storage meant something else different
Yeah,
to
then.
his age. It only meant documents and I mean like floppy disks.
Yeah.
I remember I used to run around with meme games
Mhm.
in a floppy disk. And so, like right now, I have a small little device that has all the meme games that I used to play and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So what storage was back then didn't mean what we nowadays we even store nonsense stuff which we've watched. You went to your friend, they gave you movies and stuff like that.
Now you have 1 terabyte. You don't even know.
You
what
don't
the
even
size
know
is.
what's
That's a very
inside.
good example if you use that analogy.
Yeah, you store only what aligns. The only things that you have stored, they define to what Boss is.
Yeah, let's come back to that point that I was making, but using this analogy, right? So, before we used to, a picture would be, let's say, 2 megabytes, right? It's heavy. So you take a picture, that is what we call information,
Mhm.
and then you store it somewhere. And where do you store anything if it isn't in emptiness, empty space, right?
Mhm.
Right. So we would store maybe, let's say, 4 megabytes in, let's say, this room. Now we are storing 2 gigabytes in this room.
Mhm.
Now we can store 100 gigabytes to terabytes in this room. So what I'm saying is, the only limitless thing is where things are being stored. Information is what is stored, but the
Mhm.
space in which things are stored is the freedom I'm talking about. So information is what is stored, in the sense that you can add more and more information in the empty space.
Mm-hmm.
But the empty space has no limit to it. You can add as many information as you wish. It will never be full.
So yes.
Because the knowledge itself is so limited that it can never feel something limitless.
Okay.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
So you're saying the actual freedom is in the space.
Is in the space. The
But you do
information-
have that.
Hmm?
You do have that. There's no human being, like Willie said earlier on, there's no human being that has ever come back and said, hey, I was full, I had to delete. You see, so
No,
you
you
do have space.
You always have the.
delete.
Oh, I see what you're
You see
saying.
what I mean?
So fine.
Yeah.
I think if the freedom is in the capacity or the space, don't human beings have that?
The space.
Yeah.
Human beings are the.
They have. That's where the freedom then becomes. If you agree to it.
That
Is that-
space.
Yeah,
if you
that
come-
space. Yes.
That is the freedom.
Yeah. So that space and that capacity for you to be able to
Store
store information.
Yeah.
You have it.
That's where the freedom, the freeway is.
What's the freedom?
The freedom
The
is.
capacity
Yes.
Yes.
to be able to store.
Yes.
Yeah, then we agree.
I mean, then, so that's what you are saying. That
No, not will, because remember, will is information, not the capacity.
but you just said that the capacity is the actual. You said the capacity is the what in your
The
example?
space.
The space.
empty space.
Is the what?
Is the freedom, the capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a human being doesn't get full.
He always
Which
has
means
the capacity.
He always has the capacity.
What do you mean by human being doesn't get full?
You, for example, you can learn till the day you die.
No, we forget. We replace knowledge all the time.
But
Yeah,
you,
but it never gets
it
full.
never gets full.
You can't
Because
come
of
to
the space.
Yes, that's where the
Because of
freedom
space.
is.
Yeah.
So
That
that's
space, I'm
freedom.
not calling that space human being.
Yeah.
I think that's perhaps why God's will can intervene. God's space.
No, call it what you may. We might not agree what you call it,
Mhm.
but we can agree that it is there in the existence of a human being. The
He's
capacity.
I would say what makes human being is what we call free will, is the different knowledge that we juggle around. That's what we assume to be free will. I'm saying remove the juggling,
Mhm.
that is the will, that is the freedom
You make decisions on the basis of the information.
of the
right?
information. That's
So-
what makes men.
Okay. So if you have a certain level of information, you are able to make the right decision. Is there such a thing as a right decision?
No, decision is always relative. Whether
To the
you-
information
it's
that
a
you
right-
have.
information. There's
But
no
it's a right. But it's right decision to you. I mean, you when you make a
Relatively
decision.
right.
Let's just stick with
I
that.
think we are moving away from the point that we had gathered to say your ability or
To acquire.
that capacity, like what you are saying, that when do you decide to say this I'll delete, this I'll forget, this I've had enough. That's where the freedom is.
Yeah, the capacity, the innate capacity
Yes.
to acquire.
Yes, the innate
Yeah.
capacity to acquire. That's
Yeah.
where stick to that
Yeah.
if you are really looking for answers in terms
So
of
which means takes us back to that example at first of the child.
yeah.
The child, that innate capacity to look at the parent and gather knowledge of, this is dangerous.
Mhm.
That innate capacity before the gathering of the knowledge
Mhm.
is free.
Yes.
But the will of saying, oh, I must run away from the snake, or I must do this, that knowledge now of acting, reacting towards snake is not free.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then man knows no freedom in terms of choosing A over B.
Well, it's not always choosing A over B. You can always discard it.
But that's still the same option.
But if you
If you
discard it, let's say
into action,
let's say in the example of a child, if the child says that it's almost impossible, but let's say the child decides not to even learn from
it's
their
impossible.
and says I will not fear this.
That's not possible, because the freedom is all over. The child has no option but to actually gather. That's what I'm saying. Anything gathered.
So as we grow, what happens to that capacity to?
It's always there.
Then the freedom is always there.
Yeah, the freedom, that is freedom.
Yeah.
Not what we say, open the door, not open the door.
So, okay. Are you saying then as we grow older, is it difficult for one to go back to that?
Yeah, you see, the more knowledge you acquire, the more limited, the less space you even give yourself to acquire anything. I mean, imagine a grown folk.
No, I think I understand what he's saying. So imagine when a child is born, right? And you see these two classes. Let's say I'm the child, right? Just got born, I'm acquiring, right? You see this, it's here in front of me, I'm on the other side, right? Once I acquire knowledge, according to him, this goes behind here, and I stand on the forefront. So it means when I'm acting,
this is
detecting. So I'm asking him that, is it not possible that as an adult I can move myself from here and put myself here?
That's not how real life works. How this is working is that you have these two cups, you acquire, you stand here, and then guess what? Something comes up.
Yeah, but you see now what's in front. Okay, so you jumped, right?
Yeah.
Now there's new things there. Let's say
yeah.
there's two here, right? Now you see the limitation of knowledge is what? The freedom is there. It's always been. It's the only thing that's ever been there. But this knowledge now is interfering with the freedom.
But that's
as in, it imposes you to now act according to what you've acquired before. So it's
supposing that I cannot remove this, or I cannot do away with this, and supposing on how I even interpret this will determine how it's interfering with that there.
Yeah.
But what if I do this?
Yeah, now you have even more.
He says now you have even
now
more.
Now you're going all.
You are more blind.
That's
why now you are more confined.
You find the older you get, the harder it is to even learn anything or change your ways.
Okay, no, I do agree with you.
You become linked to the past. You are no longer free to.
I do agree with you on the aspect of this information interfering with the learning process. Definitely, you're right there. But also, remember, that's why it's very independently built for me.
Because how the interference happens.
Yes, yeah. Because someone will take this and then say, the same way I acquired this, I'm going to need.
Yeah, you see, well, first, I don't think men are so different. You know, we might see you, for instance, you move, you get these two knowledge, right? You jump there. Now it is interfering with this freedom to choose between these two, right? Now this might be very harsh on you because maybe it was traumatic. So you jump here, and then because of this you end up choosing this. Now the other person might look, because of this you end up choosing this, but the equation is still the same in terms of this. Now since it's there, it's interfering with this.
But let me ask this, boss. Is there a right way of accumulating knowledge for what it is and using it rightfully?
Yeah, there is a fairly right way.
So if there is, does it then still interfere with the next level of knowledge that I will get?
Whether you do it right or wrong, the accumulation is in place and will interfere with freedom. It's limiting the freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now the more you acquire, the more narrow-minded, and so on and so on.
So according to you, are saying freedom can only exist in the absence of knowledge.
If you really want to choose,
being dumb becomes...
That is sanity. You'll be going...
No, actually it's not being dumb. You see, the highest form of intelligence isn't how much knowledge you've acquired. It's the free space, the freedom that allowed you in the first place to even acquire anything, whether right or wrong.
The wise man knows nothing.
I guess, yeah, we can put it like that. But not as in nothing being stupid, of course. But I mean, this is the highest form of intelligence because it's limitless.
Okay, this is where I feel like that information contradicts what we see in present day. For example, look at the guys who are successful, right? The guys who are successful are people that had this. We all had the same information. They stood right here and they were like, okay, let's see what the world has. So they look at the world and they're like, okay, these people are taking this information here and it's causing them this problem here. So I'm going to take this problem, I'm going to fix it, and these people will rely on getting here, so they're going to pay me to fix that problem, and then here. These are the Bill Gates of the world. These are the Facebooks, the Mark Zuckerbergs and what. And so the thing so when you say like people are the same, this shows that it's not possible. It has to be catered. Okay. I keep going back to the same thing.
No, let me intervene then. Well, first of all, this society the way it is right now, even the definition of success is something that needs to be looked at. I don't think the richest or the most people that know how to use the system are the most successful. It might just be maybe our old folk in the villages. They aren't that dumb. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, even the guy to be able to use the system, he needs some free space to be able to not be caught so much by the past. Because you see, let's say in the black communities where you see the same process, the same pattern happening, right? Is that these people are unable to completely disregard what has been there before. They keep on following the same pattern. So which means what knowledge is dictating where to go over and over. It takes one to actually be free from the past. That's where the freedom comes, to now choose an alternative, to even look at the chaos that is happening. Otherwise, it's just accepted.
But then can they do that without referring to the previous knowledge?
To learn about the chaos.
To free themselves from the past. Can they do that without...
You have to drop knowledge.
Drop or learn from it?
No, you can learn, but how do you learn from anything? If you really want to learn about something, let's say you want to learn about a snake. Can you really learn about a snake with all your accumulated fears of the snake? Can you even go anywhere close to it?
I can unlearn it.
Unlearn the fears. Yeah, which means, well, how do you unlearn anything if you don't discard?
So you're saying the best way of learning is to start from a point of not knowing.
Yeah, not knowing, to be free.
Can you not?
From knowledge.
Okay, if someone is learning from their mistakes, how would you define that? What form does that take? Where someone is saying, I'm learning from my mistakes.
Yeah, so for you to learn from a mistake, it means you dissociate yourself from the mistake first. You're looking at the previous mistake, right? What is it that is looking, if it isn't that freedom, that awareness, that attention?
It can only be that.
It has to be the attention. That's what I'm calling the space, the freedom. That sort of attention that is...
But then it still goes back to what we said. It then becomes, you have created a capacity for you that is free.
You never created. The capacity was always there.
Well, yes. Yeah. Well, you have, okay, let's say you've become aware of this capacity that you can fill in or call it whatever you may, but there's this capacity that is apart from these other things that you have experienced.
Yeah.
And because you have realized that there's this capacity, you have an opportunity to then fill it up with something else.
Yeah.
And in that space, in that juggling, this is where we are saying there's free will or freedom.
Oh, okay, so that's why I differ. This space is the freedom. As long as you're in the knowledge, the juggling of knowledge, there's no freedom.
But now, for a man that has seen that this knowledge is working contrary to what I want,
so
he drops
that,
it.
Yeah, you see, see that,
yeah,
it's the action of the freedom. You can't see that if the space didn't act upon you, if you never got freed.
Yes, so I'm saying within that space, that's where the freedom happens.
That's a good. So that's what I'm saying. God's will. That is what he was mentioning. God's will. To a point where, okay, you might choose A over B and feel like you have freedom in doing that, but that's you juggling
information.
The information.
Yeah.
But the freedom comes from outside to save you from the limited same pattern. But yeah.
No, they agree with you. Obviously, it's a case of you can think of even the earth, right? As long as you are within the confines of what we call earth, your chances of knowing even the shape of the earth are very slim.
Yeah.
You have to
be out
of it to realize that, oh, okay, this thing is in this shape, it's like this and this thing. So that capacity that allows you to step out gives you a certain understanding that someone who is inside or within may never get to.
Yeah.
So probably what you are saying is that for anyone to truly have the freedom to understand anything is when you have the ability to step out of that thing and free yourself and disconnect or detach or whatever term you might use. But it's the only way you can actually come to have that sort of freedom over anything. Or I'll also give you an example. Think of blood, right? Let's say blood represents humanity, right? And you've got the white cells, you have the red blood cells. You can call the white cells the white people. The red blood cells, you can call them the red Indians. For as long as they are trying to understand their environment as that, it will take them forever to understand that they're actually blood, or that we see it as blood, as liquid.
Yes.
Understand?
Yeah.
We only see it that way because we are able to detach and step out and say, okay, that is blood there.
Yeah.
But for a red blood cell, I don't think it even knows that
forever. It doesn't even know that it's trapped. It's limited.
And it doesn't even know that it's inside liquid.
Yeah, it doesn't know. So that's what I'm saying. So that's the illusion we have in choosing these things, of acting our daily life.
No,
that's where actually the prophecy comes into play.
Okay.
Why I was mentioning the prophecy.
So when you look at that way, you're already looking at a whole different level. Because for me, if you then look at it that way, how I see it, it means even your part that you have to play there, or his part or my part, right? There is really not much freedom there, because the whole thing is sort of working together.
Yeah. It's like
in the same way of the blood, you understand?
The red and the white.
Yes, it has to work together.
Yeah.
And no matter what it does, it will always fall through what it is that it's supposed to do.
Yes, exactly.
The only time it will cease to be that, for me, is when it dies.
Which means when it's no longer there.
When it's no longer needed or necessary or useful, then it dies and it stops becoming part of the whole.
Yeah. Okay. So now that's what I call freedom. I guess, I don't know. Sometimes I'm afraid of coming up with statements because people, if you don't do this, if you don't look at it step by step, it's either misunderstood or people can jump off.
Yeah. No, that I've also had to think of it in that sense. And one of the things that you then realize, if you think of it that way, you then realize that within the confines of humanity, or call it whatever, there is nothing there that is not supposed to be there. There is nothing there that is not playing its part.
Yeah.
If it is there, it either dies, or you can say it becomes extinct, or whatever it is, right? But the players within there, it's very difficult for them to understand what they're doing.
No, it's very difficult.
Unless if you then gain the ability to step out. And that's why I think even in terms of this spiritual thing, most spiritual experiences always seem to offer an out-of-body experience, or an out of real life sort of experience where you are able to step out This is why there are prophecies. Because you can't prophesy something if you're part of the, you have to have some form of ability to, some form of freedom, like you said, to step out and see. Because you know how even scientists are able to tell that there is a what do they call them, meteorites, those rocks coming. You can only tell that if you step out of Earth.
As in looking out.
If you and I are sitting here, we'll never know that there's a rock coming.
No, you can't.
You see? So it almost seems like it explains what you are saying, that for anyone to understand anything, you have to take that thing.
What you know must be quiet, must die.
You also must not be connected to it.
Which means you must leave it, so you must leave it actually. Knowledge must come to an end. Otherwise you're only seeing what you know.
And what you know is already dead.
It's already dead and limited. So I guess this leads us to a subject. Let's talk a little bit about death. Right? Or what is it to die? To live?
Do I stop this one?
No, I think it's gonna go. What? How long is it now?
1 hour 40.
Yeah, I think we can stop because people don't like it when it's too long. Last time they complained.